Oh, what a lad. Well, I've had plenty of requests from all of you to hear from some other champion lads from other sports. So here I have an absolute treat for you. Today's guest is currently the best tennis player in the country, and at only 23 years old, he is the future of the game. He is an incredible talent. He also happens to be one of the best lads going around, so I'm really looking forward to this one. It is the lad himself, Ajeet Rai. Welcome, lad.
Mate, those are the most compliments I've ever had in like the space of 20 seconds. I feel pretty good. Appreciate you for having me on, bro.
Mate, you're a lad, and I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more about the tennis game. Something that I've followed, and played casually, but never really known the ins and outs of the game. But who better than yourself to give us the rundown?
Yeah, mate, it's a journey, that's for sure. Yeah, I'm just excited to kind of share my journey with you, and I think kind of dig deep into what it's really like on tour, not just the glitz and the glam of traveling to different countries, and there's a
Yeah.
lot more that goes into it than just the tennis match itself.
Yeah, from a distance, it looks like the sort of dream lifestyle. You get to travel the world, you get to play in these hissing tournaments, but I could imagine after a while that can get pretty old, and some of the tournaments, especially I guess where you're at the moment, the grind to get up to these big tournaments, it must be pretty tough.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people realize that you lose more than you win every year.
Yeah,
So it's like losing in a country and then traveling to another country is like, even if you win, it's great. But the kind of thing I realize is you only have like 4 or 5 hours to enjoy your win and then refocus for the next match, which is the next morning.
yeah,
So it's the highs are awesome, but they don't last very long. So
yeah.
you got to quickly switch around and do your recovery and get ready for the next match next morning. But I'm very grateful to be able to do what I do. But it's a challenge, and just when you think you're starting to figure things out, a new challenge comes your way. So it's it's exciting, to be honest. So yeah.
Mate, it's awesome. Looking forward to hearing a little bit more. And I'm keen to hear it from the start as well. So, obviously, to get into tennis and be good at tennis, I'm guessing you have to get into it pretty young. How did it all start for you?
Yeah, so I was around probably 3 years old when
Three.
my old man put a tennis racket into my
Sure.
hand.
Yeah.
So my dad's a tennis coach,
Oh, yeah.
and he used to take me down to the tennis courts and stuff. I played all sports growing up except rugby because I'm Indian, and skinny, so it doesn't really work. But I played, soccer, golf, cricket, did the triathlons, all of that stuff. Tried to play basketball, but that didn't end well. Um, but yeah, from a young age, he just put a tennis racket in my hand, and it was kind of the way I got to spend time with him.
Mm.
My brother was a really good tennis player as well. He's 6 years older, and it was just a way of spending time with my older brother and my dad. Mum and sister not into it at all. I don't even think mum doesn't even watch me play. If she watches me, in New Zealand, it's on TV. She doesn't watch any of my matches. She like gets stressed and so she doesn't watch it at all. But yeah, it was just kind of a connection to my dad. So at 3 years old, started playing, and then at 6 years old, my dad started taking me to Australia to a coach called Peter McCraw, who had he was the coach at Bollettieri Academy. He was the head coach there. He coached Maria Sharapova, and
Mm.
he took me over there. And my dad and Peter kind of developed me. And every 6 weeks, I would go to Australia for 2 weeks to see him. And this is
Sure.
at like 6 years old.
Oh,
So
right. That's crazy.
yeah, it's very young. And then, at 8 years old, nine, started playing the nationals and stuff like that, and just started enjoying it more and more. But um, yeah, it was more just a way to spend time with my dad because he was, of course, my coach, and he was always at the courts from 3 o'clock, after school till
Mm.
8 o'clock in the evening. So I just wanted to go down there and hit tennis balls, and just ended up getting better and better at it. I mean, there would be something wrong if I wasn't getting better and better at it, spending the whole day at the tennis court.
Yeah.
So at a young age, it was just a great feeling to be on tennis court, and I honestly haven't lost that feeling since. So even now, if I go to the courts, I feel like I'm a 5-year-old kid just going to the tennis courts. I love it. So,
Mm.
like a lot of people have asked me, do you still enjoy it? And my mum and dad have said to me, as soon as you stop enjoying it, we want you to stop. We don't want you to keep playing if you don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just love it, bro. So that's kind of how it all started for me, and still went to school and whatnot. And then went to New Plymouth Boys High. and it kind of started doing more homeschool and that type of thing there. I think my attendance for 1 year, because I was traveling, was like 3 days. So,
True.
yeah, they actually brought it up when I went back there like a year ago, and they're like, your attendance was 3 days for 1 year. Like that's without getting like suspended or expelled. That's the lowest attendance we've ever had. Like yeah, and those 3 days were the days like we would have tennis matches, so
Yeah.
I would just turn up to play those. But I was just in juniors I travelled for like Australian Open and Junior Wimbledon and Junior US Open. So I was just the season never really ends in tennis. It's like it goes from January all the way through to December. You can pick and choose when you play, but you just got to keep playing, otherwise the rest of the competition keeps going.
Yeah. So what age are those junior opens? What age can you start
Under
attending those?
18s,
Oh yeah.
under
But you
18.
can
So
be any age.
you got to be 13.
Oh, true.
So it's 13 to 18. So I won my first doubles when I was 14. My first under 18s title, international, when I was 14, which was quite young. And then I won my first singles when I was 15 or 16. I won my first singles title in Hamilton, out of all places.
Oh,
It was in Hamilton, yeah. So, yeah, that's where it all came about. And then I did well at juniors. I was maybe ranked like 50 or 60 in the world, under 18s, and then started kicking on to play internationally, men's.
So were you clearly dominant in the New Zealand age groups? Because obviously New Zealand's probably not a well-renowned tennis country, are we? So were you like clearly the best in the country?
I, I don't want to say like clear. We had a lot of good players. We had a lot of good players.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there was myself and a couple others who played on the world stage and internationally, and I was fortunate enough to get my ranking up to number one from 12s, 14s, 16s, 18s, and men's. So, yeah, New Zealand. We're lucky we have guys like Mike Venus and Marcus Daniel and Ruben Statham and Artem Sitak, guys who have put New Zealand on the map. We also do have Cameron Norrie, who's a Kiwi, and he's been top 10 in the world. And Ben McLaughlin. So there is a lot of players in New Zealand who have been pretty dominant in the world, but they play for a different flag. So they jump ship. But they're Kiwis in my books. So
Do they have to jump ship? Why do they jump ship like that?
without getting in trouble, it's just funding. They just get funding. Other countries have more money, and they just get funding from other countries and more opportunity. So, if you're going to get wildcards into Wimbledon, you would jump ship, like it's going to jumpstart that. It's going to give you a huge boost, and at a young age, if you can get those wildcards, it's massive.
Is it something you've looked into or are thinking about doing? Do you have to do it?
Personally, no, because I grew up in Taranaki, and I just feel everything I know is Taranaki in New Zealand, and I don't think any one of my mates would ever talk to me again if I did. So I just personally wouldn't do it. I'm, patriotic, so about where I come from. So yeah, I don't think I ever would, but everyone has their own choice, and they do what's best for them.
That's cool. So you were born in New Plymouth. Where were your parents from?
So mum and dad, both Indian. Dad was actually born in Africa, in Uganda, out of all places.
Oh, yeah.
So that's actually where I went to play my first international tournament when I was 18. And he actually got 10 times more attention than I did there. Like, it was like some hero had returned. Like, mate, my dad was just lapping it up, eh? He's like, we'll be in the hotel and he'll be like, warm up. I'll be like, have a match at 11. I'll be like, warm up at 10 because, you got to plan the warm-ups. Oh, we'll have to make it 9 because I've got an interview at 10. I'm like, what do you have an interview for? He's like, yeah, they're welcoming home, I'm coming back to my roots. All right, mate, you do you. And then, I was born in New Plymouth, and my brother and sister were born in Stratford. So, yeah, I'm a Taranaki man.
Nice. So was your dad a tennis player or?
He was a tennis player, but then when he wanted to turn pro, it's such a financially expensive sport. My grandfather was like, no, go to uni. So my dad became an accountant, and mum's a psychologist, and just had to go study. Whereas when I had the same opportunity, I was fortunate enough that my parents backed me, and they haven't really looked back since. So I've been pretty lucky.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you mentioned like you'd hardly attended school because all these tournaments. So what was your like teenage years like? Obviously, you've got tournaments. You're pretty flat out. You're probably training 24/7.
Yeah, it was at the time I struggled with that part a lot because being in Taranaki, it's not very tennis environment. It's not a high performance, for tennis environment. New Zealand, it's tough in New Zealand to find that environment. So, I didn't have a drop of alcohol till I was, 20, 21 years old. I didn't really go to parties. I didn't really do any of that. It was train in the morning, go to school. My dad would pick me up at lunch, train at lunch, and train after school. So it was literally just full on all the time. I look back at it now and I'm very grateful, but it was also very, very tough at the time. So you don't have much of a childhood, but it's a sacrifice you've got to make, and I didn't really understand it at the time, but I'm grateful for it now.
So did you have much of did you have many friends and stuff, or was it hard to sort of keep in touch with friends and stuff?
I mean, yeah, I have a pretty tight unit. Like my best mate is a guy from Taranaki. His name's Cole Harrod. And he's been my best mate since I was, like 2-3 years old. And, I have my close mates who I play golf with and I get along with really well. But, your best mate's it's a lonely sport, man, tennis. Like you're traveling by yourself for a lot of the time. You win, you lose, you're by yourself. Or like your best friend literally is yourself. As sad as that sounds, you got to be okay with being a loner. Like that's kind of how it is. So, I love being around my mates, but I also don't mind being by myself either.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's that's the tough part. Like when we go away for Davis Cup and stuff, it's such a sick week because you're around like a bunch of guys who all have the same goal. Whereas even at tournaments, you have a bunch of mates. Like all my closest mates are on tour, but you're trying to beat each other, and then you have to be okay with having dinner with each other. It's like. You're kind of like stealing money from the other guy. So it's a weird one, but you just got to kind of have that boundary of being a tennis player and being a person.
Interesting. And by all accounts, I've heard a yarn around you burning down one of your mates' house. So I'm sure that didn't help you friends base grow. Give me the yarn on this one. I'm looking forward to this one.
The worst thing is, it's one of my best mates. His dad is actually my sponsor. So he's been my financial sponsor for like a long time. And so it's like the parents sit us down and they're like, look, we're going away to Taupo to our batch or whatever. We don't want you guys having a party or anything. No one's really allowed at the house because their house is like prime real estate right on the beach. Right. It looks over the ocean. It's like a mint house. Like it's got a deck. It's got everything. The surfboards. Like it's very, very nice. So as soon as they leave, I look at my best mate, I won't name who, and I'm like, sweet, so he's like, we're having a party, right? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like they've told us not to, so we're doing it. So, just a few people come around and we're out. All my mates are surfing. I'm in the barrel with my boogie board and my flippers because I can't surf and just enjoy myself. And then they're like having, they're smoking darts and stuff afterwards. Not me, because, I'm meant to be the athlete and whatnot. So I'm like kind of looking after the house. I'm like, sweet, I'll lock up all of this stuff. And then there was some outdoor lounge like chairs, the ones that are like outdoor furniture. Yeah. And they're smoking and they're like throwing cigarettes in a box of beers, like putting them out and throwing them. Oh, okay, sweet. Like, and then a couple must have fell through the cracks off the deck, and they go to town, and I've like wanted everyone to leave. I quickly dropped them at town because the Aussie Open final's on. So I go back to my house to watch the Aussie Open final. And then about like 2 hours later, one of my other mates who lives on the road messages me and he's like, hey, there's 8 fire engines outside your other mate's house. And I'm like, nah, you're taking the piss. Yeah. Like I left there like 2 hours ago. Like we're mid in the third set. Djokovic is about to break. Like I'm not leaving. Like this is like, I'm parked up for the night. I'm good. So then I'm like, send me a photo because I'm like, you're yarning.
Yeah.
Sends me a photo. There's 8 fire engines. So I quickly wake up my old man and I'm like, because he's good friends also with my best mate's dad.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if this is true, I need protection, because otherwise I've lost my funding, I've lost everything. Like, I'm basically going to be homeless. And we go over there, there's 8 fire engines, and my best mate, he's running back from town, like, not in the best state of mind. He's just sprinting back from town. And we go down, the whole deck is just gone.
Oh.
It's gone. So there was a fire underneath the deck, and it hit the barbecue and exploded at 4 in the morning. And the whole house caught on fire, and the double glazing windows, the first glazing like cracked, and then the second glazing, and the whole deck is gone. And he comes up, he's like, "What a great night though, huh? What a great night." I was like, "Are you joking, mate? You just burnt down your house. Like, this is unbelievable." So the parents, they got insurance, so technically, it's actually good. They should be thanking us. They've got an unreal house now, and it's all well and good. But yeah, it's fair to say we weren't allowed back at the house for a wee while. After that, they handled it pretty well. But like, when people say, like, don't burn the house down, and then you actually do burn a house down, it's like, yeah, that was probably one of the worst moments. That was pretty bad.
Oh, I could imagine that feeling when you see the house on fire, just feeling sick.
Yeah, I was just like, what are the chances of that actually happening? It was a nightmare, bro. It was not good.
Oh, but you've still got your funding.
Yeah, I'm still backed somehow. He's a legend. He's just very close. Like, he's like another dad to me. And I'm just lucky I have support like that, because tennis is an expensive sport.
Yeah.
And you definitely got to have money to play it. Otherwise, it's too hard, You get injured, you don't have income. That's how it is, Whereas I look at some of the other sports, and guys get injured and they still get income. It's like, man, I'd be rolling an ankle every second week. I'd be parking up on the sideline. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Oh, true. So when did you think that you could potentially go pro at this game?
So I was 19, and I went on to it's like the ATP tour. So it's the senior tour where you get ATP points, and there's the Futures Challenges and the Grand Slams and all of that. So this is like, the Futures, which is pretty big tournaments. It's kind of like you need to start winning those to even get to Grand Slams and stuff. It's like pro events.
Yeah.
And I went when I was 18 and played 2 of them, or 19 in Thailand. And first week I lost first round, and I was like, okay, I played all right. And then the next week, I was playing number 1 seed. He was about 200 in the world, or 210 in the world. Ended up beating him and ended up winning that tournament just out of nowhere. Like, I got a wild card into the tournament, ended up winning it. And at that point, I was kind of like, I never even dreamed of, New Zealand was kind of, when you're number 1 in New Zealand, or you're trying to be I wasn't even number 1 at that time. I don't even think I was top 5 or 6. I was, and then I won that tournament. I was like, man, I should give this like a go. And my parents were like, this is unreal. And probably the most unreal thing there was I was with my dad, and like, you do everything with your dad. You do a lot of hours with your dad. You're 6 a.m. on court with him. Man, the amount of fights me and my dad have had, and then my mum has to mediate, and, we would have some brutal fights on tour. I mean, it's tough to separate the two.
Yeah.
And to have him there and win my first international title, that was awesome. So that's when I decided, like, man, I'm going to give this a crack, and it's, I just want to go all the way. I want to be top 100, top 50, top 10, world number 1. I want to do it all. So that's my goal, and I think playing pro, you shouldn't. Well, not shouldn't, but I don't even know what's the point playing if you don't have those goals to be world number 1.
Yeah.
You got to aim for the top.
100%. Love that. So when you were 19 years old playing against the number 1 seed in the competition, how do you feel going into that game? Do you feel confident, or are you like, shit, I'm going to get pumped here?
I just had no fear. I mean, all those matches, like playing at the ASB Classic, playing, all these matches when I was younger, I was just like, I don't want to lose love and love.
Yeah.
I want my mum to check the score and know I've got 2 or 3 games. Like, I want her to, like, don't say, come back, you're going to school or going to uni. Like, I was just like, put on a good show. Like, but then at 19, I got the call up for Davis Cup, which was probably the most unbelievable feeling. Like, I was in my room, and in Jakarta, about to play quarterfinals there. So I was doing well that week. Qualified and beat two really good players. And the Davis Cup captain calls me. He's like, "We want you on the Davis Cup team." And I remember my brother was traveling with me that week, and I called my mum, and mum was like, "Nah, you're joking. You wouldn't make the Davis Cup team." And I was like, "Well, I got the call. Like, I don't like. It was the most exciting time of my career because, you know, Davis Cup. You watch it. That's, as a tennis player. Maybe people who don't play tennis won't appreciate it, but it's like being an All Black for rugby players. That's the pinnacle for someone growing up in New Zealand and then playing Grand Slams. And, you know, we get to Korea and I'm sitting in the changing room and I got the call up to play doubles because Marcus hurt his back. And I was just there like, you know, I was the hitting partner, so I was like kind of on holiday. I was kind of enjoying myself. Like, Tennis New Zealand were paying. I was kind of eating well, you know, enjoying myself. And then the coaches, you know, they came up to my room to come tell me I was selected, and I had like a Frappuccino from Starbucks and like a custard bun. And they had told me at the start of the week, like, they're going to be watching what I eat and my professionalism. And I have this like massive thing with caramel on it, and I'm like so excited. I'm going to my room, go watch some Netflix. Like, the boys can play their matches. And I get out of the elevator, and one of them's like, "You're meant to be playing tomorrow, but now we're reconsidering the selection and I might play." And this is the coach saying this. Right. He's like, "I might have to step in." I was like, "You can have that. You can have that. It's all good. Sorry, never going to happen again." And the next day I'm sitting in the changing room and there's Marcus Daniel, Michael Venus, Artem Sitak, Ruben Statham. And I was like, kind of getting like a deja vu, because when I was 8 years old, I was their ball kid.
Oh, true.
And I was sitting in the changing room asking them for autographs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, either this is really exciting for me or you guys are extremely old. Like, how old are you guys? And they were like pretty offended by it. But I was like, this is weird. Like, I was 8 years old and now I'm playing with you guys as a team and you're on the sideline and you have these guys supporting you. And it's like, that's the exciting thing about tennis, is you can really like, you can improve quick and get results, like some really sick results pretty quick, but also like the hard work, when you focus on the hard work and it pays off, it's so rewarding.
So how's doubles compared to singles? Is that a hard adjustment?
I play pretty good doubles. Like, I've won maybe like 9 international titles, men's, on the doubles side, but I don't enjoy it as much as singles. But it's freakish, like the reflexes, and you know, you have small targets to hit into. It's like Mike and those guys, when they're like volleying with you, you just need a helmet. Like, they just want to take your head off, you know? Like, I just like, it's just a different game. I mean, with all due respect, I wouldn't say you need as much fitness playing doubles. It's not as brutal as singles. Clearly, you're only covering half the court. But there's also a lot of thinking involved. I mean, there's not many rallies in doubles because it's all about pre-established tactics and that type of stuff. So it's tough. I find it really tough, doubles.
So when you're called into that doubles team late, is that really hard to just jump in there and play with someone you haven't really played with before?
I missed my first 13 returns. I didn't hit a ball. I was hitting the back fence and the coach is looking at me, like scratching his head and looking at the manager. They're like, they've made a mistake here. Like, I honestly was so excited. Because we're playing against two guys who are top 100 in the world. Yeah. Like, they were playing Aussie Open and they see this like little skinny Indian kid come in. They're like, "Yeah, boys, here we go. That's 2-1 up. Like, that's easy dub." And I go in there and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to like hit laser beams. I'm going to show these guys like who I am. Yeah. Like, I come out there hitting like cover drives to the back fence. Like, it was so bad. And like, I look over the side and everyone's just like scratching their heads. They're like, this is real ugly. I'm so happy it wasn't televised. And we ended up actually winning. I like actually ended up playing real well. And like, Artem Sitak was unbelievable with me. Like, when I was missing, he's like, "It's all good." I was like, well, it's actually not. Like, this is really bad. I'm sorry. But we actually ended up winning and playing like really, really well. And those guys, it just shows like Mike and Ruben and Artem and Marcus, like, it's not about the tennis, but the leaders they are as people. Like, that shows me what I need to aim towards. It's not just about me becoming a better tennis player, but also helping the next generation coming up and inspiring and the next generation coming up. And I'm lucky to have people around me that, mentor me and help me out and stuff like that.
And you mentioned a little bit of court banter there. Is that quite common? Are guys usually giving you a little bit of lip? Or
Oh, brutal. Like, man, there was this Argentinian dude last year. I won't name him, but if any of my mates are listening, they know exactly who it is. And like, this happens a lot. Like, I'm also like, I'm not going to say I get into it. Like, I love like getting into it on court as well. And
yeah,
I'm playing this guy. He's like 200 in the world. He's a great player, very good player. Like, he's won a lot of big tournaments this year. And I'm like 6-5 up in the third set. I played a good first set, lost the second set, 6-5 up, and I walk past him, and he's like, says something about my mum, like about my mum, like he keeps saying it, and I'm like, I looked at him, and I'm like, what did you say? He's like, I said you're playing really well. So he like, because the umpire, like that, like, man, these guys just, they get so personal.
yeah,
Like, I was playing in New Zealand here, and like a guy starts saying like at Davis Cup, like, go back to your own country. I'm like, well, I've got New Zealand on my back. Like, yeah. I actually, honestly, I like, yeah. And like, even last year, like guys would say like, go back to your own country and stuff. I'm like, honestly, I do, but quarantine. Like, I want to go back home. Like, I really do. Like, you're not wrong. But guys just, I mean, they'll do anything to win. But we all will. But,
yeah.
I mean, guys will take like, you'll be serving for the match and they'll take a medical timeout. They'll say, oh, my knee's hurting. I need 3 minutes treatment. Yeah. So then they break your rhythm. It'll be like 5-4 up. They'll be like, I need to go toilet. Sorry, mate. Got to go. Right. They'll just walk off the court. You know, they'll start like, it's such a mental game. But like, probably the only thing I do is like, if someone's playing really well, I just let them know they're playing really well. I'm like, mate, you're serving unbelievable. This is such good tennis. And then they start thinking they're playing like good tennis. So then they're like, start over, analyzing it. But I mean, that's the part I've learned to enjoy is like the mental battles you have with people on the court. Like, you look for anything. Like, if, I remember I used to say when I was a kid, when I'd miss a forehand, I'm like, I couldn't hit a forehand. Like, imagine how dumb that is, telling your opponent you can't hit a forehand. Like, how absurd is that? Like, imagine playing someone and they're like, I can't hit a forehand. What are they going to do? Yeah. They're literally just going to feed you balls to your forehand. So, like, this part of tennis I'm starting to enjoy, and I've learned to enjoy it. I never did, but I've learned to enjoy it, and now I just love going in for a battle, and I love, like, coming out of it and being like, man, I left it all out there. That's the, just applying yourself and giving it your all.
So when do you say that stuff? Is it when you're switching ends, or do you just call it out after a good serve?
I mean, a lot of the guys say it because the umpire can't hear it, because they're fining people left, right, and center. Like, it's $100 fine, $500 fine. Like, they just fine you like crazy. Like, you can't even say the F word on court anymore. You get fined because everything's mic'd up. And then, you go to a club rugby game and you hear these guys, like, some of the stuff they say. It's like, man, I would be like done for 12 months if I said some of that stuff, So, you just got to be very careful. And just play tennis. I'd advise just to play tennis, but when you're playing, especially like, countries, say like the South Americans, they, they're ballers and they will do anything to win. Like, they will fake an injury, and then when you think they're going to retire, they'll come to the net to shake hands like they're going to retire. They'll like do a U-turn, go back, and they'll play unbelievable. So, yeah, it's just mentally, like, sometimes it's just draining. Yeah, it's just draining.
Mate, it is such a mental game, though, isn't it? So, how much time do you spend on like the mental side of the game, or is it something you find quite hard to sort of train?
No, that's one thing. I used to train so much physically and so much on my tennis, and I got to a level where I just felt like last year I was at a standstill and just couldn't improve. And then from December, I started working full time with a psychologist, and that has helped me incredibly. I'm working with him every day. I'm talking to him every day, whether it's good or bad. And I've benefited a lot from it. I'm lucky to have people around me again who help me a lot with the mental side, and people I can lean on, and other athletes I can lean on. And yeah, I think it's very important to have a good support team also, because as much as it is an individual sport, you got to have people around you that can help you, What
sort of stuff do you guys talk about, or what sort of tips does he give you?
More focusing, like, say, on the process, on things I can control. That's probably been the biggest thing for me, is focusing on stuff I can control. I'm very if anyone knows me, I'm a massive overthinker, and I try to control things I can't control. Like I used to go into matches. What if I lose? What if this happens? What if that happens? What's my dad gonna think if I lose? What about sponsors? That's just irrelevant. And it got to a point in December, January where I was like, this is just draining. Like it's super draining to think like that. And I just ended up changing it into, having my processes, what I can focus on and what I can control. And I'm a much happier person, and I enjoy my tennis, and tennis is now what I do, not who I am. So I'm pretty lucky. I guess I figured that out a bit earlier, but I did wish I figured it out when I was, 16 playing in Taranaki Club Champs and not freaking out about whose name was going to go on the honours board. So, yeah.
Mate, I love that. So when you're going into a tournament or like heading into that game, what are your nerves like? Would you be before your first serve of the match? Are you nervous? Are you shaky, or are you always usually pretty confident?
Horrendous. I mean, I'm confident in myself. I feel I'm a confident person, but I normally struggle to sleep the night before. I normally get pretty broken sleep, and then during the match I'm fine. But it's like before the match, the build up, it's like your stomach is like twisting and turning, and you can't stop moving, and you're playing music and you're trying to calm yourself down. I remember playing my first Davis Cup match a couple years ago in New Zealand. I was playing at the ASB Centre. It was the first time my mum's watched me play in a long time. So I'm like, man, I wanted to think I'm good. Like, she's like, I wanted to think I'm like, I don't really care about anyone else, but my mum, I want her to be like, yeah, my son's a beast. Like, this is pretty cool. And I remember the warm-up, I was like, has someone put this net up a foot or two? Like, the net felt so high. Like, I missed the first 6 or 7 balls in the net, and I'm just like, okay, this is not good. Like, this isn't good. But I ended up playing pretty well and whatever. But nerves, man, since I started doing sprints and stuff before, try to sweat and get my heart rate up, but it's just because I care so much. But nerves are just, I learned to enjoy them. Like, I've come back for the last couple of weeks in New Zealand, and I was in Thailand and I played quite well there, and going deep each week in the tournament, and I came back home and I thought I needed a rest, and I got back home and I'm like, it's so boring. Like, it's so boring not competing. Like, I want that excitement of will you win, will you lose, living on the edge, figuring out a plan for a different player each day, analyzing their game, waking up in the morning not knowing if you're going to play good or bad, but managing what you got on the day. That's the exciting part about tennis, is it's not consistent. It's something different each day.
You mentioned analysing there. How much analysing do you have to do?
My coach does it most of the time. So when I grew up playing tennis, people would ask me tactics. I honestly just saw where a person wasn't and hit the ball into that corner.
Yeah.
It was pretty simple. But now you see different swing lines. A guy might have a more extreme grip, so he can't hit a certain shot. Guys play further behind the baseline, so you need to cut the angles off and make the court smaller for them. You got to put pressure on their game so they feel a different way. So there's so much there's different tactics for each player. You play a lefty one day, you play a righty next day. The next day someone's 6'4" and has a big serve. The next day someone's 5'3" and runs at the back fence.
Yeah.
You just got to it's got to be different every day. And I think that's the part people don't see, is they see the match itself, but they don't see the tactics that are used, and they don't see how much planning goes into one match.
Interesting. And one thing I've always wondered about, you see the rallies or the warm-ups when you're both out on court. I always find that must be quite awkward, because obviously you're trying to warm up the guy you're just trying to beat. It seems weird to me, but what's it actually like?
This is weird, but I try to be kind of nice to the guy in the warm-up, because I don't want him to be a dick during the match, or I don't want to have a angry match. But you can notice in the warm-up, if these guys, a couple times, a guy's had smashes, I've given him smashes, and he's just tried to peg me. He's tried to hit me off the smash. I'm literally giving you a smash. It's not even the match yet, And it's one time I was playing, the umpire did the toss last year, and I was heads. So I win the toss, and I'm like, I'll serve. And I'm like, oh, good luck, mate. He's like, yeah, you'll need it. I was like, okay, I think I will. Yeah, you're right. Cheers, appreciate that. So you I mean, the warm it's not really awkward, and you know most of the guys on tour you're
Yeah.
playing against now. So like, you're pretty good mates with them, and you practice with them. Like, there's a lot of times that the draw's not because the draw comes out on say Sunday. So on Sunday morning, I practice with this guy. The draw comes out, you're playing him the next day.
Yeah.
So you just practice with him. It's like it is awkward, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
That's the tough thing about an individual sport. It's not like in a team sport where you can warm up with your team or, like imagine a soccer team going and having passes to each other before they played match. Like that'd be so random. But in tennis, I guess that's just how it is.
Yeah, interesting. And you've spoken a little bit about the travel and how much travel you get to do or have to do. Who organises that? Have you got like a manager, or is that what your coach does, or how much of it falls on you?
Oh, nothing. I'm pretty lucky I have people around me that if I tried to book a flight to train from New Plymouth to Auckland, and I'm like to my parents, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to Auckland, like I'm going to go train, my flight's at 6:30, and my mum travels a lot for work.
Yeah.
She's like, there's not a 6:30 flight leaving from New Plymouth to Auckland. I'm like, yeah, there is. Like, drop me at the airport, I'm good. And I get there and I go to check in, and it says I actually booked the flight from Auckland to New Plymouth, not New Plymouth to Auckland. So this is a domestic ticket. Like, I can't even organise that. So no, I'm pretty lucky I have people around me that sort all that stuff out in my travel and whatnot.
And who travels with you?
So sometimes I might travel with a coach and stuff. My dad used to travel with me all the time. My dad was he's been my coach. He developed me the whole thing. So he traveled me a lot. But from last year, he's back home with mum. I think he's a bit happier not traveling with me anymore. And yeah, I travel by myself a lot. You meet up with players and stuff at other tournaments, but I'll start to travel with a coach and stuff like that, and just makes it easier.
So who have you got a new coach now, or is your old man still taking you?
Yeah, no. So I'm working with a coach, and I mean, my dad's always going to be my coach. He's always he calls the shots. He's the big baller shot caller type of guy. So he calls everything from home. But my coach right now is a guy called Christian Groh. He's in San Diego. And he's coached Tommy Haas, he's coached Grigor Dimitrov, Taylor Fritz, Korda, got asked to work with like Djokovic. He's, worked with the best coaches, and he's old school German. Like, he is one of the toughest guys to be on court with. Like, we'll be warming up in the morning, and, you're just warming up for like 10 minutes, but it's like intense, like not missing. And I'll miss like the first ball. He'll stop you like, Ajeet, are you okay today? What's going on? This is like the first ball. I'll miss it. What's going on? He's like, if you're gonna miss like that, and if you're gonna act like this, you can just get off the court. I'm like, okay, sorry, man. So I like wake up more nervous to train with him than actually play a match, because I'm like, man, if this guy, when he's angry, he's like tough. But it's exactly what I need right now too. Like he's very intense. He's such a clever coach. He's just very, very good.
That's cool. So what's the plans for you for this season, for this year?
So I'm going to go to San Diego and play 3 more big tournaments there, like the Futures Pro events. And then I'm trying to get my ranking, to like 400s, 500s by the end of the year, so I can start playing like challenges. And then from next year, hopefully can keep just dragging my ranking down to where I can be playing qualifying on Grand Slams. And that's the goal. Like, my ranking dropped a lot in the last tour in Thailand, which I was very excited about. And when you have that feeling of it dropping, you just don't want to stop. You want to keep it rolling. It's exciting, like seeing that ranking change over and seeing you're just like, yes, like that's pretty cool.
Yeah. How much did COVID affect you and your ranking and things like that?
My golf got pretty good. I started playing Unreal actually. But tennis-wise, not ideal. I was just stuck here in New Zealand and we're lucky enough to have some tournaments and stuff, but it's not the same as international, Even, like, I was talking to a lot of the people who mentor me around me, and I was like, I just don't know, you don't have that plan, or you don't have that hunger to train, because what are you training for? But of course, everyone was in a tough scenario, but I think in New Zealand we were lucky, as much as people say we were unlucky, like, we were safe, and I think that's the biggest thing, I think I've had COVID a couple times, but the tournaments don't tell you, because if they tell you you've got COVID, then they have to shut the tournament. So I'd be like real sick, and they'll be like, you haven't got COVID, but just stay in your room for a week. Just stay in your room, just don't come out. Okay, sweet, no COVID here. So Yeah, it's COVID sucked, man, but it is what it is. Again,
Mm.
I got to do some things that I didn't. I played some summer soccer with my mates. I was like fizzing for a Tuesday afternoon. It was like the most exciting time of my week, and like golf. Just played a lot of golf. Got pretty
Mm.
good.
Mate, love that. Not the worst.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a little bit about trying to get into the Grand Slams and getting your ranking down to that level. What level do you have to be down to start getting invited to the big ones?
Around 200s. So that, I mean, it looks like a huge gap, but it's
Mm.
like winning two, three big tournaments, and you can start getting dropping and dropping. So it can happen pretty quick, but you also have to play very, very well. So it's like getting entry. So my ranking now can get me entry into the a bit bigger tournaments and gets to the bigger tournaments where I can play and there's more points on offer. So it's just about constantly improving, and again, it's you can focus on rankings and stuff, but I just try to focus as much as I can. Like they're my goals, but on my processes and
Yeah.
stuff I can control.
Do the rankings change every game, every tournament? How often do the rankings change?
Every 2 weeks.
Is it? Oh, yeah.
Every 2 weeks, yeah. So like if I made semi-finals, then in 2 weeks' time, the new rankings would come out.
Mm.
So you also your rankings you have to defend what you had. So say this today, if I made semi-finals last year, and this year I'm not playing, I would lose those points from that tournament because you have to defend it every year. Whereas in golf, it's 2 years, I think. So in tennis, it's every year. So it's also about having consistency. You could have a great year, and then in December you're sitting there like, okay, I got to back it up.
Mm.
Because if you don't back it up, you're back to square one.
Yeah.
So
Ruthless.
yeah, it's not great.
So, what about in sort of like a 5 year goal? Where do you see yourself in sort of 5 years in the tennis world?
In 5 years, I want to see myself inside the top 100.
Yeah.
That's where I want to see myself. I want to see myself consistently playing Grand Slams. Or if not, I'll be working at Maryland's supermarket in New Plymouth. So yeah, that's where I hope to see myself in 5 years. I mean, I'm putting in the work, and I think the last 2 years, as tough as it is for me to say, is the years I've consistently put in the correct work.
Mm.
I used to think I was working hard and doing the right work, but I didn't understand what correct work was. So now I feel like I'm doing the right things on and off the court and holding myself accountable for the little things off court.
Mm.
So I think I'm giving myself the best opportunity.
I love that. So, what's the sort of dream age? What's the peak age traditionally for a tennis player? What age do people feel like they're peaking?
Well, in my head, when I started playing, I thought I was going to be like living it up when I was 13, but that didn't exactly happen. I think around 26, 27, because I think that's, when you fully develop, not just physically, but mentally. And tennis is such a mental sport. Like, you have to be so rock solid in the head, and you got to be a little bit like insane. You got to be like you got to be different. You have to be, like all those top guys are just like, they're a little bit insane.
Yeah.
Like even like Djokovic and stuff, the way he is with things, and like he never wears shoes. Like he goes out to dinners and stuff barefoot because he wants to connect himself to the earth. I'm like, man, I'll just wear my like shoes. Like I'm good. I'd rather not walk around barefoot. But all these guys, man, they have their things, and you just got to put in the work every day. And I think that's what it is. So I think you just gotta put in the work. It's not rocket science though. At the end of the day.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's a massive sport for superstitions. You mentioned Djokovic going out in bare feet, but I'd imagine there's heaps of superstitions within the sport. Have you got many?
This is real weird, but I used to have this thing like in a warm-up, I would say in my head, if I don't hit this shot over the net, I'm not going to win. So if I like missed it, I would like start freaking out and have like a panic. So I would have to like redo the shot. I don't walk on lines after the point's finished.
Oh, yeah.
If you ever see me, I don't walk on a line. I have some random ones, but they're also real weird, so I don't really want to bring them up. But there's some real out the gate ones. Like I used to have to wear like the same hat if I won a match.
Oh, yeah.
but then it got tough, like washing the same hat or even not even washing it. So, I mean, there's some guys with random superstitions. Like there was this guy I played, and he wrote like every match, he would write his game plan like on his wrist.
Yeah.
So I would like walk past him, and I'll be like, "What do you got on your wrist there?" Like, I mean, tennis players are just weird. I think in general, we're a weird kind. We're not normal. Honestly, we're not normal. Like, that's what I'm saying. Tennis players are a little bit insane. Like, you see on tour, some guys like, I mean, this guy, Indian player, travels with a god, and he puts a god on the side of his court. And like, you want to beat this guy, but then you walk past the god, and you're like, like I don't really like. How do you beat that? That's just too good, you know. Like, you got God on your side here. So, I don't, you know, there's yeah, tennis are weirdos, man. They're just weird. Yeah.
And you mentioned working at Maryvale Supermarket.
Yeah.
What are your plans, life after tennis? Have you got much other than the supermarket dream?
Yeah, I mean, when I was young, I wanted to be a like rubbish truck driver because of the things they used to pull. Like I used to think that was awesome. But yeah, no, I want to do something with sales. Like I love talking to people, and I love, you know, doing something. I mean, doing like podcasts and stuff. This type of stuff's awesome. I reckon it's sick. But anything like that where I'm like interacting with people, I'll really like to do that. Also like helping the younger generation in some way. I realize I don't know how to coach. I've tried helping a couple kids, and I'm pretty sure I made them worse. So I don't really know how to coach, but I wouldn't coach personally. I wouldn't coach tennis. But yeah, like sales or something like that, or just interacting with people and that type of thing would be pretty cool.
Mate, you'd run an awesome podcast, I reckon. Would you reckon guys like Djokovic and Nadal and stuff would come on if you asked them?
Yeah, but no one else would be able to talk. I'd just be talking to myself, and I'll just be like, at the end of the podcast, like, yeah, thanks for coming on. Cheers, appreciate it. Like, no one else would be able to get a word in. So I just like, even if you see me playing, I like talk to myself.
Yeah.
The whole time. Like, people are probably like, is this guy got like someone else on the court? Or like, I'm having like full on conversations with myself. I told you, I'm not lying. With tennis are weirdos. We're not normal.
What sort of stuff do you say to yourself?
Oh, honestly, I just tell myself, like, tell myself to like compete and fight and dig and like just try to like pump myself up with like positivity. There's one of the things my psychologist worked on is like what you say will take you closer to where you want to go. So like, you know, telling myself to like compete and fight and like be a warrior out there is like what I try to tell myself now. Whereas when I was 12, it's like, you're so bad.
Yeah, the opposite.
You're so bad. This is bad. That's bad. I'm going to miss this shot. And then you end up missing it. And you're like, why am I missing it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just tell myself, I just try to be real positive.
Mate, love that, mate. And exciting times coming ahead for you. Looking forward to following it. But as always, we have gone to our Instagram for some questions, and a few good knacky lads look like they've come in.
Oh, here we go.
Here, but the first question, got this one twice actually. Do you have any mentors or people who help guide you?
Yep. So I'm pretty lucky. When I was very young, like Ruben, Statham, like I lived on his couch for a year in Auckland. And I was real lucky actually to be around him because someone who I looked up to and seeing what he does, and he's one guy that has just maximized everything out of his body and his abilities as a tennis player. He takes care of the little things, and he's one guy that what you see on court is so clear. What he does off court is beneficial for him. And, you know, like we'll be in the gym and we'll finish and I'm like, sweet, done, gym session done. And he'll be in there for another 20 minutes doing something. It could be something little. It could be warming up, doing something for his forearms or something, or his neck strength, like random. But he just will always put in extra effort. And that's when I learned that, you know, guys like that, there's a reason they get to where they are. And then, you know, the rugby boys, I'm also lucky. Like recently, Dan has been helping me a lot.
Who's Dan?
Carter.
Oh, Dan Carter, you're kidding.
Yeah. No, I've been pretty lucky. Like I saw him he was at this exhibition event we did, and he was playing like the celebrity match, and he was like, I think, a bit nervous about playing it, and he was actually pretty good. He was actually really bad, but he played, and he did his exhibition event. And then I saw him a few times at Next Gen, and he helped me out with a lot of things. And now if I have any questions and stuff I need help with around mindset, he helps me out a lot with it. And he doesn't sugarcoat anything. He just gives me exactly what I need to do. And I'm lucky I have people like him and like Anton, and Bowden's helped me a lot in the past. And I'm just happy I have guys like that around me who have made it. And especially in New Zealand, where I feel there's a lot of tall poppy around.
Yeah.
And guys like that cop it. If I think I have pressure, imagine missing a kick or dropping a ball with them for a test. Even I think they're horrible people after that. But like having those guys around me, they're good people before good athletes, and that's what they've taught me, is that tennis and myself, they're two separate things. And they help me like big brothers type of thing. They're just really good to me, and I've just they kind of tell me what's coming around the corner before it even is there, so I kind of know what to expect. And I've made plenty of mistakes in the past, but I'm lucky I have people like them to hold me accountable, like my older brother, who's like one person who I lean on a lot for support. And yeah, I just think it's pretty cool having people like that around you.
How good's that? Couple of the rugby legs helping out New Zealand's best tennis player.
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah, it's cool.
But that goes on to this next question, actually. Tell us a story about the first time you met Bodie.
So I was at ASB Classic. I think I was like 17. I was young, and I was hitting with John Isner. He got me to like hit with him for the week through Prince sponsoring me. And I was hitting on like the outdoor court on ASB Classic. It's like court 2, but it's like there's bleachers, so the bleachers were packed. And I don't know what Bowden was doing, but I think he was up at the Heineken Lounge or something.
No doubt.
And yeah, of course he was. And I saw him up there, but he was just looking through the cage, like minding his own. And I saw him up there because I'm like, I wander a lot when I play. Like I'm looking everywhere, and I saw him, and I'm like, oh, this like I know that's Bowden Barrett. Like I'm 17 years old. I'm from Taranaki. Like you want to meet this guy, but I'm like, nah. Like I'm meant to be training with John Isner at the same time, and he's got like his coach and his agent, and the agent's looking at signing me, and I've got all this happening, and I just like they're talking, and I just look up. I'm like, oh my God, it's Bowden Barrett. And I'm like yelling out at him. And he's like, oh my God, who is this kid? And I'm like, come down here. And I got him down, and he came down, and, I talked to him for a bit, and then I just started pestering him all the time to help me and stuff. And he was just the kindest of guys, and he just helped me out heaps. And like, before I'd play matches, I'd be nervous, and he would send me a paragraph on stuff to work on. And all those guys, man, they're not like, now you realize it's actually not that they're good athletes, they're just good people. They're like, they just want me to do well for me, being me, not me to be a good tennis player. They just want me to be happy. And all these guys, like, as well, I don't really see too much of the rugby and stuff anymore because overseas the time difference and stuff. But I just want those guys are just good people, and I just want them to be happy, honestly. So I've apologized to them a couple times about how my behavior was during that period, but yeah, shoot, mate.
Mate, he is a lad, and yeah,
he is. Yeah.
Awesome to hear. He's keen to help out, but does not surprise me. Okay, next thing. Is it true they call you the sailor? New girl at every port. Good to see Karifi.
No, I'm allergic to water, so pass. I'm a focused man. I'm dialed in on the tennis. I'm dialed in. You don't have time for that, Focus. I'm not, but he's all wifed up. I don't know. He's all wifed up, so he's putting all this external nonsense onto other people. It's actually pretty funny.
Jealous.
Yeah, he's just jealous, man. He wants to be me. Doofy. How good. He's a good fella also. He's a good fella. Mate, he wears that man wears his heart on his sleeve. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's all from the Naki. I mean,
there's something about it up there, eh?
That's how we are.
For sure. Okay, next one. Toughest thing about pro tennis?
I would say dealing with, you get 10% high for a 90% low. Like, you might get highs a couple times during the year, but you deal with a lot of lows. And I probably didn't deal with that well last year, but now I'm starting to understand that every time there's a low, there's a chance to grow and there's a chance to improve, as, cheesy as that sounds.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think that's the hardest thing. It's consistency and being alone and just how tough it is, the highs and the lows. But you get to travel the world and see some incredible places and incredible people and incredible girls. And I think that's all part of it. So you just got to look at the positives. But I think that's the toughest part, is the 10%, 10% highs for the 90% lows.
The sailor, I love that from you. Okay, next one. Who's your dream golf foursome?
My dream golf foursome. Dream golf foursome. I would say, who can I come up with that's not like that would just have unreal chat on the golf course? Michael Jordan, man.
Oh, Michael Jordan, yeah.
Michael Jordan, Rafael Nadal.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Lance Armstrong, because I want to know if Nadal's juicing, and I think he would know. And then, of course, Tiger Woods. Man, that guy, Tiger Woods, I mean, what a foursome there.
He was a sailor.
Yeah, he was a sailor, mate. He was a sailor. He played in a lot of foursomes, didn't he? Donald Trump, maybe, actually.
Oh,
just someone just real controversial. I just want to you don't want to play with
stir the pot.
You don't want to play with just four boring people,
Yeah.
Yeah, nah. Yeah, that's probably my favorite golfing foursome, I'd say.
Have you come across Rafael Nadal much?
When I was younger, I did. But not I mean, though he's been at the top of the Grand Slams and injured and whatnot, but I got actually invited to train with him at the Nadal Academy, but happened to have to come home due to COVID lockdowns, and isolation. So cheers for that. But yeah, those guys, man, they're just different level. You watch them and it's their highest levels here and their lowest levels here, and that's the difference, is that other guys could be highest levels there, but then their lowest levels here. So they just beat you here every time. They just... I mean, how many times can you say you've seen Djokovic play horrendous or bad? You just can't... He doesn't. He just doesn't. Other guys might play well, but he never plays bad.
Oh, interesting. Who is the best tennis player of all time? That one's here too.
Best tennis player of all time. See, this is a tough one, but I don't like... I personally don't... I respect Djokovic a lot, but I necessarily don't, like the way he is, I guess, is some of the things he does. But I would say Djokovic. I mean, on stats, you have to. You have to say Djokovic. People say Federer, people say Nadal, but Djokovic beats every single stat. So it's not a popularity contest. It's who's the greatest tennis player of all time, and I think it is Djokovic.
Oh, huge.
Who do you think?
Oh, I'm going to go with you, Djokovic. You have... On stats, you have to, eh?
Good call. I'll come back.
No, honestly, I don't know the stats, and I would have been leaning towards a Federer probably, but yeah.
Yeah, he's the billboard of tennis. Federer is the billboard of tennis. When you think of a perfect tennis player, perfect gentleman, elegant tennis player, sponsored by Nike, all of that stuff, you think of Federer. I mean, he's sponsored by Nike, Mercedes, and Rolex. I mean, how can you hate him? Come on, how can you hate him? I would still go for a G-Shock any day of the week. But, I mean, you just can't hate the guy. So, but then Djokovic on stats has just beaten all those guys more times. He's, Nadal has got more Grand Slams though, so you could go with him. I go Ruben Statham. There you go.
Oh, well, four of the greats anyway. Okay, next question. If you could get a video shout out from any celebrity, who would it be and why? This question's come from our major sponsor, Swish.
Man, I don't know. I think Michael Jordan, man.
Yeah, I thought it would be one of your golfing buddies.
Yeah, Michael Jordan or Kanye.
Oh,
I reckon Kanye would be sick. And I've got a Yeezy for President shirt that I'd wear.
Oh,
to respond to his video he sends me that he won't reply to. But I reckon that would be incredible. Like Kanye or Michael Jordan would be sick.
Like that, like those options.
Yeah, yeah.
What are your hobbies outside tennis?
Golf. I love golf. Like I play. I have a group of mates I play with. Like back home, and I go out with them. So go play golf all the time.
What's your handicap?
I'm playing off like a 9, but that's because I enter good scorecards. So I don't know what. Every time I have like 4 bad holes, I ditch the scorecard. So that's not an honest score, but I can play all right. It's just I come back with a slice or a hook every time, so I have to manage it. So I'm not consistent.
No, you're not a Djokovic.
Nah, I'm not a Djokovic on the golf course.
Big highs and massive lows.
I mean, Geordie he's a ridiculous golfer.
Incredible.
He's a freak. Like he's a gun. But like guys like that, I don't know. I mean, they just talented. They can just do it. Whereas me, I play with a group of 4 of my mates or 3 of my mates back home, and we're just hackers. We just go out and have fun, and it's banter, you know. Like, there's one of my mates, Cole Harrop. He's probably the most horrendous golfer of all time. Like the most terrible swing, and somehow I lose to him sometimes. So, I mean, it's just banter on the course, and it's just good fun to get out and be out with your mates and, you know, have some fun. And Fortnite.
Oh,
yeah. There's because when I'm traveling, I just take my Xbox and I can just plug it in and still play with my mates. So yeah, Fortnite.
Nice. Okay, 2 more to go. I want to know about the party scene of tennis. Do they have after parties after a tournament? What's the nightlife like after a tennis tournament, or do they all just go to their room and focus on the next tournament?
Absolutely not. I don't think people realize, like, they see tennis players focus and stuff, but there's a build up of like steam that needs to be let off there. And there's, I mean, parties, girls. I mean, that's just how it is. It's just like, normally what happens is if you lose in the quarterfinals, you find the other 3 losers from that day, and you guys just have like you go out with the losers. And or if you win the tournament, you know, it also depends. Like normally it's at the end of a tour, because you don't want to do like party during the week and stuff like that, or during another tournament. You only got 2 days to the next one.
Yeah.
So you know, you gotta pick your battles. But tennis players, they're loose units, bunch of weird loose units. So yeah, it's probably not the consistency of some other athletes or some other sports where it's like every weekend type of stuff. But when they go out, I mean, you're losing a tournament, you're in Mexico. You're not going to go to your hotel room. Yeah. Like, you're in Barcelona, you lose. What are you going to do? Yeah, right, I'm not going to my room. Like, you know, you got to go experience and have some fun and let you know, live a little. So, like, we lost when we won in Vegas, that was a pretty cool night. We had Davis Cup in Vegas, and I hadn't seen the Strip the whole week because we'd been, like, dialed in, and, you know, we'd been at the courts and stuff like that and training. Then after we won, I mean, the coaches don't want to know us, so they're just like, see you later. Like, have the team dinner and you're off. So I went out, and I was so gutted I didn't see the Strip. So by about 2 a.m., I was just running through Vegas with my phone, taking photos of everything I could find. Yeah. And then the next morning, felt like I kind of lived the Strip a little bit. So that was kind of cool. But I actually met up with like UFC fighters. There was this guy, Kevin Holland. Oh, yeah. And ended up like with him and UFC fighters and stuff. And it was pretty fun. Vegas is, but a week was too long. I wouldn't want to play Davis Cup there again.
But if you're not playing Davis Cup, you're in charge of your own rules. You can go out when you want. You don't have like a manager or something like a rugby team where you've got curfews and things like that. It's all on you.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have to, I mean, tennis, exactly. It's on you. But you've also got sponsors that expect results. And you got to hit targets. And if you don't hit targets, you don't get that sponsor anymore. So it's like, it's also a bit tough in that sense where, you know, you're kind of the captain of your own shit, but there's people paying for that shit. So you got to have the respect for them that, you know, you pick and choose when you want to go out and do stuff and party and stuff. But at the end of the day, we're professionals and we're here to play a sport and here to win tennis matches. But you can't spend the whole year just dialing into tennis every single day. You got to have, time when you relax and let loose a little bit. But that's maybe 4 or 5 days off the year.
Yeah.
So anyone who's listening, I don't want you thinking that we just go out every single weekend, because we do not. It is not like that.
Go hard on exactly. Those 5 days. Sounds like good stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, last question. Ask every guest this one. Best piece of advice you have for a Waterlad listener?
When you're playing any sport, the best piece of advice I've ever had is, like, when you're playing a sport, always try to do the right things, because win or lose, you come off the field or court improving. And I think that's probably the best piece of advice, because if you think about it, if you throw your toys out of the car, don't focus on what you need to do and have a bad day. Everyone's going to have bad days, but you don't try to get the best out of that bad day. You might come off losing and having a terrible, time as well. Like, you don't improve.
Yeah.
So I think that's it, is trying to focus on the process and trying to improve.
Love it. I knew you'd have a good piece of advice.
So inspirational, man.
My tennis game's going to develop very quickly.
Yeah, see it at the classic. See it at the classic in January.
Oh, if I could move, my hip's still buggered, but if maybe I could play doubles half the court, then let's do it.
I think maybe Mike Venus is looking for a new partner.
Is he? Oh.
Send him a message. Get him on the potty. Send him a message.
Oh, mate. Well, it's been a pleasure having a yarn with you, mate. Hell of a lad. Awesome journey. Awesome to get an insight into life as a tennis player and hear how weird some of these characters are. And really looking forward to following your career and what your pathway holds over the next few years, and seeing you become world number 1.
Appreciate it, mate. Go well. Thanks for having me.
You're a lad.